Good afternoon. How is everybody? Good morning to Mr. Tony.
Hello. Hello. Good morning.
And good
Good
evening to
evening.
Miss Annette from Annie's Kitchen and Urban Homestead. I'm really pleased to see you. Welcome in.
Hello.
So today is our last episode in this series of the Introduction to Urban Homesteading. So I'm going to give you guys, hi, Suburban Hillbilly, how are you? I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask your questions about the series, but we're going to give a little brief synopsis and have a little bit of a chat of each of the episodes as we go. So if there's an episode that it sort of like jumps your memory of something that you'd like to ask, then please do go ahead. You're more than welcome to do so. Sorry, I'm having to move things around here. I wasn't quite that organized as I thought I would be. So
You're funny.
yes. Well, I try.
Okay.
Mostly I don't even try. It's just me. So Mr. Tony, do you want to tell us what you got out of the series, maybe?
Well, I think something that's solidified in my head, and we've had this discussion over the last few weeks, especially with a lot of other collaborations that are out there and points being made. I think it's important for people to know, while urban homesteading is a task that's able to be accomplished, but don't go into it with, oh, X, Y, and Z can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
Not in the sense of it's that easy. Now that doesn't mean that because X, Y, and Z are doing it, you can't do it. I don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
But you need to really take into consideration as to what extent you want to do it. What does that involve?
Yeah.
Are you able to do it? Are there parameters and guidelines you're stuck to follow? And if so, what are they? And then know that it's a constant, ever evolving process. It doesn't, just because one task is done, doesn't mean it's done for the rest of the year, because 9 times out of 10, it's something you have to repetitively do over a year's time. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the other thing is glaringly obvious is learning never stops. Your
no, it
research
doesn't.
never stops. You
No,
might think you know everything there is to know about something, but someone will come up with something new.
right.
You'll never know everything there is to know about that one subject ever.
And it doesn't matter how educated you are or how much
No.
knowledge you have. That is, I think that's, to me, that's one of everyday life's lessons,
Yeah.
is learning every day, experiencing every day, but learning on those and moving forward is the best way to do it. And I agree with what Suburban Hillbilly is saying, is that everybody has an individual circumstance, advantage, and limitations, but you do the best you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's so true. And we all have to do what we can do according to do with our physical and mental well-being,
Right.
our financial situation, our living situation, and all of that. And it's just adapting. I think it's when you're urban homesteading, there's more adaptation that's required than if you have a farm or a homestead per se with a bit of land on it. There's a lot more that you need to be able to adapt and do. I mean, just you might live on the 15th floor of an apartment block. Doesn't mean you can't be homesteading. Doesn't mean that you can't be doing the cooking from scratch. Doesn't mean that you can't be growing a few herbs on your windowsill. You might have a balcony, and I've mentioned him before. Our gardener grows a lot of his food on his balcony, and he's
No,
on
you're
there.
not. You're not going to have pigs and beef and chickens up there.
No.
But within that realm, there are things you can do. You just,
Yes.
like you said, you have to adapt to what you're surrounding, and theoretically, what your environment allows you to afford. You can
Yes.
still do it. Yes.
Absolutely.
Don't.
Absolutely.
I think the other thing that goes along with everything you've brought up to everybody and everything we've all discussed and talked about, whether in chat or up here on panel, it's not a matter of, this is going to sound obnoxious, but I got to say it. It's not a matter of, can I afford it? Can I afford it? It's more of, what are you willing to do? What does your space allow?
Yes.
Expense does play into that to some degree,
Mm-hmm.
but you can almost always, aside from cows and pigs up on the balcony, I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But everything else can be adapted to fit your situation. You just got to really think outside the box. That's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. And make the most of what you've got.
and make the, yes, 100%
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. So, yeah. So, what I thought was we would have a look through our playlist. I'm going to share my screen. So, it makes it easier so then people can see exactly what it is. So, yeah, well, that's my thinking. Okay. All right. There we go. So our very first one was side hustles for the urban homesteader. And we went through several ways. Well, we went through 10 ways actually, of being able to gain more resources and make our urban homestead work for us so that we don't have to put in so many out of pocket expenses because it's kind of paying for itself. So things like if you got too many seedlings, selling off the seedlings, all of that kind of thing. A friend of mine who technically it isn't an urban homestead, but he's small enough to be classed as an urban homestead because he's only using his front and back garden, has basically used his polytunnel, and this is Cuckoo Cottage. If for those guys who don't know, go and check out his channel. Scott over there is amazing, and his whole polytunnel is set up to grow certain varieties of food and flowers and herbs and all of that kind of stuff specifically for the seeds. Now, he's now selling his seeds through an organic shop online, and he's earning a lot of money doing that, you know, and all it's done was, sorry?
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
You know, so he doesn't have to worry about seeds and things like that or any, you know, overheads because he's now got an income coming in from that, you know, from that he's doing, which is absolutely amazing. I mean, the other thing as well is sometimes when we're canning or making or whatever or preserving, we tend to make more than we can eat in a year. So selling some of those, passing those on, that kind of thing. It's there's a lot of different options out there, and you know, it's a good one to look at. Let's have a look.
I think when you look at side hustles and you're looking at two things. Number one,
Yeah.
how is it benefiting me specifically in the sense
Yeah.
of in my urban homestead? And the second thing is it something I can do in addition to setting up said urban homestead
Absolutely.
and make a decent income at it? Seed, I'm not even sure the word I want to use, but being able to have seeds and sell them off to others so that they can benefit from them
Yeah.
seems to be the most logical, aside from
Yes.
animals that you can dispatch and then sell that way, or fruits and vegetables. It
Yeah.
seems like the next logical and best logical thing to do, because as we're growing, those items are just producing the product that we would sell, and it's a double win is what it is.
Absolutely it is. It really, really is. And it's, you know, it gives back because then you've got money for if you need to get extra compost
Right.
because you're producing enough for yourself. If you need to get a piece of equipment that you didn't have the money for before, that's all money that can go into stuff like that, which makes
Right.
your life easier as you're going down the track. So it's, you know, it's a really good way of looking at things. And that's why I started with it, because I know that people get worried about the expense of setting up and doing things like this because it is expensive. I'm not going to lie to you. You can be done
No.
cheaply and it can be done in a more reasonable way, but there's certain pieces of equipment that even secondhand are going to cost, and it may be money that you just don't have yet. But if you're able to have some kind of income coming in from what you're doing, then that's going to offset that and make life that much easier.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I do see what Suburban Hillbilly's saying. She
Yeah.
can't even give them away. If you're going to throw them away, send them to me because we can use them for next year.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really sad. It is actually really sad. But, I mean, yeah, I've been lucky really with that. I found a group here on Facebook called Edible York. They collect seedlings and seeds and stuff, or edible ones, for people who use the food banks. So, so that they can have a bit more food security by growing their own food, if that's the mindset that they want to take on. And there's a lot of people that do that have to use places like the food banks and things, because they see the good of it. Whereas people who don't need to worry about that tend to have a less kind of mentality of, I should be doing this or whatever. Yeah. So
No, I agree. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that you have to do it. It doesn't. But I chose to do this first because I know that people, their instant reaction is, it's going to cost me a lot of money. How can I offset that? And that's why I made this the first episode, because I thought people would receive it better, because there are side hustles. There are ways of getting a little bit of money back on what you're doing. And it does make life a lot easier.
You can do any of the things that Blue has discussed on a small scale approach.
Yes, absolutely you can. I mean, like, I have a table that's being moved out front in the next week where my extra seedlings will be going. And, that's where I'll be selling them from if people aren't picking them up to take them down to the food bank. So, yeah. But, and every little pound penny helps,
It does. Stockpile it, and then you got it for what you need.
Yeah, exactly. Suburban Hillbilly says, I've told you about the neighbours with the apple trees, so I won't repeat the story. They also let the grapes and blueberries from the previous owners rot. Want to bet they buy apples and grapes? Yeah. Yeah, not fun. Okay, so we're going to move on to episode 2, which was the top 10 skills needed for urban homesteading. And in this episode, we were talking about resilience. We were talking about mental and physical capacity. We were talking about those kinds of skills, rather than just being able to grow a garden or knowing how to do things. Yes, knowledge is important, but there's a lot of other resources and a lot of other skills that you need before those come into play, because, it's all, the last 2 years, we have not had one tomato. We've not had one. And I've grown probably 120 plants.
When I think about the number you've grown, it just blows me away. You haven't had one.
Yeah. The first year we had, the year before last, we had 80 odd plants, and every single one of them got blight just as they were setting fruit. And try as we might to try and make life a little bit easier for them, to try and stop that, it just decimated the whole lot, and there was nothing that we could do about it. And last year, although I had the seedlings, when we moved, they got left behind,
Yes.
which was gutting, absolutely gutting. So I now
But
have,
but I think
I
I think it makes a point though, because I remember the first year we did actual vegetable gardening, not flower gardening. Our tomatoes didn't do anything, if I remember, or we got one or two little things. We got very little.
Yeah.
Now, our first year, hold on, I got a loud vehicle going by.
Okay.
So basically, what I was trying to say, he's still loud. That didn't change much, did it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Um, it- so my point I'm trying to make is, and especially like in your situation where you did it one year, they got bad,
Yeah.
and then you do it another year, they get bad. That doesn't mean the third year they won't be
No.
successful, though. Don't
No. Well,
give
that's it.
up on it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just about like going, okay, well, it's like last year, everyone's beans, for some reason, everybody's pole beans were wrecked. No one knows why. They just they weren't getting enough pollination or whatever it was, but no one had any beans. No one. There was no rhyme or reason for it. It was just no one had any. So, it's some years you'll have that. You just got to move on and go, right, well, I have got this and I have got that.
Right.
So let's just be happy with what we've got right now,
Well, and the truth of the matter too, along with that, is that you can try and try and try and do and do and do, have all the experience, education, and knowledge.
Yeah.
But some things are out of our control. If the
Yes,
season
nature is
doesn't
very
have the
out of
right,
our control.
it is, and so
You know,
we have to be willing to accept that that might be the reason as well. Some things are not
absolutely.
producing.
Absolutely. Yep. Oh, pardon me. Oh, rude.
Pardon me.
I know. It's dreadful, isn't it? Suburban
I think it's
Hillbilly says, I like cut out any bad spots and use the rest. Yeah, me too. And I understand that it upsets you. I really, really do. Maybe with the greenhouse, you'll have success this year. Use copper dust or spray as an organic blight control. I'm not allowed to use that over here. We are not permitted to use
right.
copper sprays in the UK, unfortunately. So, yeah, not allowed. The only copper we're allowed in the garden is the copper tape that you can put around a pot to stop the slugs. But copper sprays, copper anything like that is not permitted.
But I think it does lend to a good point. Check out, make sure that there's not ways in your area, in
Yes.
your microclimate. Let me throw
Yes.
that word out for the day.
Uh-huh.
That you're able to use, and that can assist you in whatever issue you are
Absolutely.
having. Because just walking up to our local nursery or hardware store that sells a lot of plants or whatever, there's a lot of people there that have really good knowledge about your local microclimate. So
Absolutely.
utilize them.
Yeah. And he says this year was our best year for tomatoes, but we did have a ton of hot weather. Well, yes, because you live in Australia, darling. Okay. Well done. I don't mean to laugh. Why are we not allowed to use copper? We're not allowed to use copper because people were getting copper poisoning. They were using too much of it. So
hello, Devin.
Yeah. Hi, Devin. But that's why. We ended up with people with blue skin, green. That greeny blue color. Yeah, but yeah. So and that was because it was being used a little bit too much, and it was decided that it would only be allowed to be used. It was also quite damaging to the soil as well, and soil health. So farmers were told they weren't allowed to do it, and which meant that people were not allowed to do it in their own private gardens and stuff like that. But I'm also aware that there are certain gardeners that make up their own liquid copper things, but that's got nothing to do with me, and that's entirely up to them if they want to play those sorts of games there in their garden, in their own back shed. But I'm not going to say do it because, I could get in trouble for that.
Let's not do that.
Devin says, we went 61 days without rain last summer, South Central Oklahoma, is that?
Yes.
What a year to choose to put in our first food plot. Yeah, exactly. But, you're not going to know unless you do it,
Right.
you know?
And the thing is when you do some, will you bring me more coffee when you come back out? Thank you. You don't have to right now. When you do when you have a situation like Devin just explained,
Yeah.
don't take it as a loss or a
No,
fail, at least in my eyes, because it gave you an opportunity to plot out your land. It gave you an opportunity to figure out where you want what. You got an opportunity to
absolutely.
figure out how actively your weeds are growing. Now that's going to change depending on the amount of water, obviously.
Yeah.
But my point is use it as a learning experience. Don't let it be a reason something didn't work. It's prepping me for the next year or the next time I try to do something. That's what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, Suburban Hillbillies also brought up a point here, right? So, lay down newspaper and mulch helps keeps the soil from splashing up the foliage. This helps keep down blight as the blight comes from the soil. Yes, it
Right.
does. And if you have a
Yep.
look on my channel, I put up a video for the 4 Hours collaboration where I show you exactly how I water my tomatoes
Yep.
using old soft drink bottles as waterers, dotted about 1.5 feet apart down my main beds in my greenhouse, so that you just pour the water down there, or you pour where it goes
Hmm.
straight to the roots, rather than having to, have to worry about the resplash and
Right.
stuff like that. So yeah, but yeah, have a look.
And
Um,
like Devin said right there,
Shameless
though, they
plug.
learned.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, that was our shameless plug right there. Um,
I was just all I was trying to say was that Devin did make the point I was trying to make. They learned a
yes,
lot last year, even though it was a bad year for growing because of lack of moisture. They still learned a lot. It looks like, and that's
yes,
great.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. And buckwheat crop, that's awesome.
Yep.
Um, and he wants to get to the point where we're less reliant on the grocery store in regards to buying veggies and fruit. Exactly. That's all our goals. That's all our
Yep.
goals.
Yep.
Um, Suburban Hillbilly says, I watched it. It's the master gardener coming out in me. I was 2 years away from lifetime certificate and had to quit. Oh no.
Oh, that
Oh,
stinks.
that's so sad. Okay. Um, okay, so the next one we're going to be looking at as how do I begin urban homesteading, working out your priorities. Can you take this one for a second? I will return. I need to
I I
go
can
somewhere else for a
barely read
moment.
it.
I'm really
Right.
sorry, guys.
No. What is the topic you're talking about? Sorry, I can't read
Okay,
it.
so it's how do I, or just chat to people for a second.
Okay. Hi,
I will
everybody in chat.
yeah, I will be right back. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you. I know I got what she has to do. I was just trying to figure out what she was talking about because she started a point, but I can't read it. So um I think the best thing is and I really like how you guys are saying that, you know, here's things that we have happen, here's things that we do and how we do it, because it gives people confidence in knowing that they too, thank you, they too can have issues, but there is a way around them. There is a way to get through them. Like Devin said, even though the moisture level was very low for them, um, the nature's moisture level, they were still able to get some learning experience out of that. And I think that the biggest thing is you really just need to get out there and try and see what you can do, see what you're able to do. If it's not successful in one year, again, use it as a backdrop for what you learn from that moving forward into the next year. Um, I do know another issue that we tend to have isn't so much a bug issue, even though we do get some bugs that attack our vegetables and fruits. Ours is more because we have about a 2 to 4 week span during the summertime that it get excessively hot, and keeping up on the watering and still drawing that fine line of not to overwater, that has a tendency to be our worst time of the summer. Um, and I'm sure other areas fall into that same category as well. But every one of us have something that hinders our process, but we can get through it if we're just diligent about it, if we just realize what those things are, and if you don't, then for the next year you'll know what those items would be. I think the other thing that's important too is make a journal of what you're growing, planting, harvesting, processing, things like that. So you know what works for you, what your season before, or even a couple seasons before, what the issues were that you dealt with, so that when you move forward, you can look back, say when you're getting ready to plot out your garden space that you're going to grow. Then what I would do is refer back to the number of years that you have in your notebook to say, okay, with tomatoes, I had this, this, and this. So I know moving forward into it this year, then we want to move in a direction that doesn't, or it does address these issues, but make it so it's a productive year for the fruit and vegetable that you're putting out there, is what I'm trying to say. Annette says, any ideas on how to keep the neighbor's cats out of your raised garden beds? I have a dog, so I don't have an answer for that. Maybe somebody in chat does, or we'll ask Blue. She's coming back. She might have an answer.
I
So
really do
Annette,
apologize for that, guys.
no, you're fine. Annie was saying, do
All
you,
I'm going to say is this, right? When you start eating properly and exercising, your body starts to react to that. And
moving right along.
there's just no, it's just wrong.
Annie asked, any ideas on how to keep neighbors' cats out of your raised garden
Net them.
beds? There you go.
Net them.
Yep.
Even if it's just strawberry netting, on some bamboo, on bamboo canes with like upside down yogurt pots or something on them, so that the poles don't go through the netting. Do that, because they can't get in there.
Right.
They can't get in there.
Suburban Hillbilly said, put plastic forks pointy side up randomly throughout the bed.
You could do that too. But I find netting is much more effective because cats get really wily about stuff like that.
Right. And then Devin's talking about a journal, because we had talked about, I said one of the biggest things is try to remember to keep a journal. That way you know what happened in the years previous.
Yes.
When you go into next year. And he was just saying, they keep track of the planting, nutrients, cuttings, should be keeping track of rainfall, which I agree with.
Yes.
But at the same token, you're at least doing the journal. The journal is going to give you some information. So
absolutely. I don't keep an eye on rainfall because I live in North Yorkshire, in the UK, and all I have to do is look out the window most days and, oh, look, it's raining again. So yeah.
The rain and fog capital of the world.
Yeah, it's the rain and fog capital of the world. So, but we do get quite hot summers as well. So it's just about, so I don't really worry about collecting rain and worrying about that. I think there are some days, like last night, we probably got about an inch of rain between 10 o'clock last night and 9 o'clock this morning.
Yeah.
But
I do agree with Devin in the area they're in, because that we have other mutual channel friends that are in the same boat.
Yeah.
And knowing how much moisture they had, natural moisture, the year before, gives them an idea. Okay, this crop did this well with this amount of water.
Absolutely.
So I do think it's a good idea in some areas. So
yeah. Our growing season, all I can tell you is that our last frost date is May 10th, and our first frost date is usually around November the 10th. So we've got quite a long growing season, and there's a lot of people over here that use grow lights and grow space and stuff like that. We just, honestly, I haven't found the value in it. I know other people find the value in it, but I put the seeds in between now and the 10th of May, and everything comes up and catches up, and we still get it anyway. So I haven't really seen the value in doing that. Personally, that's a personal thing. So yeah, but we will be growing over the winter as well this year. I do every year because I always put the garlic in on that goes in on Halloween. That's like my marker for it's garlic day. So yeah, but yeah, so we do grow over the winter as well. So that's pretty cool. Hey, Sika, how you doing?
Hello.
So yeah, well, where were we? How do I begin urban homesteading? Well, you pick your battle.
Yeah.
You pick your battle. You pick what you want to do. If it's learning how to cook, you learn how to cook. If you want to learn how to make cheese, you make cheese. If you want to learn how to preserve food, learn how to preserve food. Just start doing it. If you want to start a garden, start a garden. You know? So, you know, it's where you want to start, where you can start, you know. Jess from Roots and Refuge has the greatest of sayings that says, turn your waiting room into your classroom.
Yep.
So it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in your forever home or not, it's still a waiting room for whatever's coming next, right? So you want to have as many skills as possible for whatever comes next. It may not be a move. It may be something else, but at least you're ready in the best way you possibly can be.
And I think the other thing that goes along with that is it goes back to the first topic we were talking about.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an expert and so knowledgeable that you can do everything in homesteading. It really goes back to what Blue said. Find one thing, learn from it. It's ever evolving. You now have that skill, move on to the next one. So now you've got two skills. It's a slow process, but it's worth the weight in gold once you've acquired the skill to be able to move forward and then possibly help somebody else out.
Absolutely. I mean, like for me, you start cheese making, the first thing you're going to do are cream cheeses. Why? Because they're easy. They're basic. Mm-hmm. You know, they're the easiest things to do. And you're going to get so excited about yourself that you've made this cream cheese that you're going to go, well, I can make cottage cheese now. Mm-hmm. So you make the cottage cheese. And what comes after cottage cheese? The next, that then comes into your molded cheeses. You know, so you start making things like you'll put a side of cheddar. But you'll be sitting there, I'll tell you what, you will, okay? You will sit there.
Done it.
And you will be looking at it every single day until it comes to maturity in 12 to 18 months' time.
Yep.
You will. You'll go there and you'll look at them. It's like your first bet. When you first see your seedlings come up in the garden, you'll be like, oh, look, I can see the green bit. Yeah, see? Yep. That's exactly what it comes down to with cheese, you know? And then once you've done that one, you'll want to make a different one. And then you'll want to make a different one. And then you'll be trying all of the things.
Yep.
Yeah, just don't try and do it all at once either, because if you try and do it all at once, you're going to come a cropper because you're going to get burnout, number one. Number two, you're going to fail, and you may not be ready to have fail after fail after fail after fail, but because everything takes practice. And that's
and financially, you can't afford to do that either.
No, financially, well, you might be able to, but, you know, most can't.
Good point. But it's just like Suburban Hillbilly said, you will get overwhelmed and you will quit because it becomes overwhelming to try to do everything all at one time.
Exactly. So, you know, I mean, like one thing I used to write about was doing something for an hour a day, learning something new for an hour a day every day. Yep. So, you know, if you're wanting to learn about cheese making, use that hour. Doesn't have to be practical making cheese making. It could be just reading up on it. You know, It could be putting aside time to do more research. Could be, you know, collecting all the things together. You could be just, you know, working all of the things out. and working out which cheeses you want to try first, or want to make, rather than just going, well, I'm going to make all of the things, because you'll probably find that milk doesn't go quite as far as you think it does.
Right.
It's never going to go as far as you think it does. The ingredients you use very rarely go as far as you think you do, and that goes with anything that you're making. Although I have had some sauces that have seemed to have grown.
Really?
Yeah. Like when you're making pasta sauce and stuff like that, it tends to always be a little bit more than I'm expecting.
Yeah. But I think if you go, Annie put in here, and I think this is important, set a monthly goal to learn a new skill each month.
Yeah, you could do that if you're up for doing that, and if you've got all that time on your hands that you can do that, I would say yes, that's an idea. But I would also say don't push yourself that far as well. Learn a new skill, then go and learn a different skill, then go back to that skill if you want to try.
I was just going to say the same thing, because you don't want to lose it. Yeah.
You can get bored of doing the same thing, and you think, oh, I've seen so much of that, I just don't want to do it anymore. Right. So if you say, for example, you're growing a new thing in the garden, you've put that new seed in, that's really cool. So next year you're going to try something different. Uh-oh, what happened? Did Mr. Tony disappear? What happened? Oh no. Yep, he's disappeared. Sorry, guys. He'll be back in a minute, I'm sure. But yeah, that's been my downfall. I need to go back to maintaining what I have before I do more. Yes. And I think that's important as well. And not to over push yourself. Like, okay, so if you go and do an online course on something, I will tell you now that they give you 6 to 12 months to learn it. Okay, to do the online course. They expect you to do a unit a month. All right. So if you maintain that idea in what you are doing at home to learn a new skill, do 1 unit of what you're doing per month. I would say that would be a better one than learning a new skill each month. That way you're breaking it up so it's easier and in easier chunks to be able to do. Unless, of course, you have that time that you're able to do those things. And if you can do that, then that's a really cool thing. But yeah, don't push yourself so hard that you will hate the thing that you're doing. And it won't be fun anymore, because if it's not fun anymore, you won't want to do it. It'll become a chore, and we don't want to do chores. Okay. Seeker says, same as anything, learning is a progression. Yes, it is. It is indeed, my friend. Okay, so then we went to what equipment do I really need? Okay, so there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of lists of stuff. There's a lot of, there's all these lists of what I need and what I don't need, the things that you should have and all of that. And some of them are thousands of items long. And honestly, you don't need all of that. And you look at the equipment that you have, what you can do with what you've got. Think very hard about what you actually need right now, and change it into wants and needs or needs and wants rather than going out and buying all the stuff. Because if you might go and buy yourself a whole heap of hand tools of stuff that you can't even use yet because you got no got no projects with it, which is fine. But honestly, if you're not going to have, unless you've got it for a really good bargain, it's not worth getting until you're actually going to use it. Okay, because you like Suburban Hillbilly says, you still have your housework, still got paying bills, you've still got to do the things, right? So if you can find bargains on things, grab the bargain, but don't buy a bargain at the risk of losing the quality. and understand that some pieces of equipment.
Sorry.
Well, welcome back.
I forgot it was Isaiah's school. I forgot to call him, tell him he wasn't coming in again today. So they were a little
Oh,
paranoid. And then I couldn't get back in.
Oh, no.
I'm here, though. So
That's okay. That's cool. So, yeah, equipment is about using what you have, finding as many uses for it as you have, and not overdoing it. Yes, there are some pieces of equipment that you would prefer to get new.
Yeah.
They are investment pieces. Everything that you purchase for your urban homestead is an investment. It is not just buying things for the sake of buying it.
Yeah.
You know.
On the flip side of that is don't buy things that you're not going to use, because then it's a waste of money. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, just only, yes, go and find the bargains. If you can find the bargains at estate sales or secondhand shops or Facebook Marketplace or any of those sorts of places, any kind of secondhand place, Craigslist, I think you guys have got Gumtree in Australia, all of that kind of thing. Check out those places, see what you can make, because one man's trash is another man's treasure. One thing I love in Australia is the council throwouts, or the council collections. No matter where you are, they have one of those every 3 months, and you can go around and see what people are chucking out, and you can actually pick that stuff up. That's the whole point of people putting it out a month before it's due to be picked up. So, people go around and they collect things. My whole house was furnished by a couple of these things. So, like I said, one man's trash, another man's treasure. So just see what you can find as well. Okay. So then we went to the kitchen and we looked at the top 10 skills in the kitchen. And I think what most people were interested in more was about the preserving and making the most of your harvest and any meat or veg or whatever you get in the house, making the most of what you've got there. That was the biggest thing.
It was.
Yeah. But so we ended up doing an entire episode just on that, where we had Mr. Tony, but we also had Miss Ginger from Not For Nothing Homestead, because it was important enough that we needed to have, because I don't do pressure canning. It's not something that's done here in the UK to the degree that it is done over there. I probably know maybe 3 people that actually do pressure canning over here. Most of them don't bother. So we do things like water bathing, we do heat packing, we do smoking, we do air drying, we do all of the more traditional things. So, thanks, Devin. It was lovely to have you, mate. Have a really, really awesome day.
Yep.
Have a great weekend. So, it was a really cool conversation. So, that's always a really good one to go back on, because it is important to make the most of your harvest. You've put all that work and effort into it, or if you're in an urban environment, you might have gone down to the market and someone's flogging off boxes of tomatoes for £1. So you want to get 3 or 4 or 5 of those, Right. So you want to be able to preserve them in the best way possible, because
and I think
everything.
Sorry. I think the best thing to remember just in that segment alone was just what you said, but putting really a lot of emphasis on the words that you used.
Yeah.
You're an urban homesteader. The point is trying to get the best out of what you can produce and the ability that you have to produce it. Why end up throwing it away or letting it just go to seed if you're not going to preserve what it is you've created to use throughout the year?
Yeah, absolutely. But then it's also looking at the storage that you have, because it's all very well canning 150, jars of tomato sauce. If you don't have anywhere to put them,
Yeah,
You know,
valid
because
point.
the cat's going to look at you funny. If you start making
Well,
pyramids
I,
out of glass jars of canned food, you know, because that's the only place.
I think more than the cat would be looking at you funny at that point. But
Oh, yeah,
yes.
exactly. Have a heap of Swiss chard, so going to try and make some Swiss chard pesto. Awesome.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Suburban Hillbilly says storage is a big problem for me. Yeah.
It is for a lot of people,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
I mean, we don't have much storage here.
No.
Most of it's up in the loft, which is absolutely useless for canning and you know, having jars of things because it's too hot. Basically, the houses over here are built to keep the heat in. So it's in the summer, we would end up with exploding jars. And I'm not willing to have that. Thank you.
Let
Because,
alone it's a problem to clean up.
yes. So we have to make the most of the room we have downstairs, like down here, like on the ground floor, which is the main part of the house. And we don't have a lot of that. But we are going to do what we can with the most that we've got. So, and that's all we can do at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care what anybody says. I'm not putting jars under my bed. I have pets and I clean, but not doing it. Fair enough. Absolutely. But see, like for me, that's the kind of place that I would put bulk dry store items that are in boxes. Do you know what I mean? Things like excess toilet paper would go under there. More kitchen
But again,
rolling,
it
things like
goes back
kitchen
to
rolling
what
stuff.
I think it goes back to what somebody had said earlier. It's all about the space and the situation you're in. So while Suburban Hillbilly won't do it, and understandably why, people that don't have pets might be able to do that and not have issue with it. So it's
Yeah.
really dependent on what your situation is, what you have going on, what you can afford, what you can do. Really, all of this comes down to a thought process. That's what it really comes down to.
Absolutely. Now, in the 1970s here in the UK, there was a series called The Good Life. And I think that's one of the things that tainted my brain for the way that I live now. Because I loved this couple and it was all about them. They lived in a upper middle class area, so quite a posh area of town, and they turned it into an urban homestead with a pig, goats, chickens, all in their backyard. Okay, so so it was, I think that's what really got me. And one of the things about them was that no matter what happened, they didn't give up. They had disaster after disaster after disaster.
Right.
One of them was there was a massive storm, so it pretty much devastated their harvest. So they had to get their posh neighbors from next door to come over and help with the harvest. And of course, her posh neighbor is standing there in her designer clothing and designer welly boots trying to pick tomatoes and put them all around and stuff.
Ew.
Then they find out that, and that's exactly what she was like. And, the other neighbor moved and they realized there was oil in the tank, so they wanted to go and siphon it off. They had to get hold of her to make sure that it was all right to do that. And then they found out that there was a leak in the tank, which absolutely decimated a third of their garden.
Oh, no. Wow.
Yeah. And in the very last episode, so they had to get through that as well, and they had to find ways around that. In the very last episode, they got burgled.
Geez.
And their whole house was ripped to shreds. It was graffitied over. It was ripped to shreds. It was absolutely devastating. And their neighbors next door, who'd always had their back, turned around and said, well, look, don't you think it's time now to pack this all in? And they just turned around and went, no. It's at the
But
end of the
then,
day, it's sad, but it's still just stuff, and it can be replaced and it can be fixed, and we're still going to get it.
but the reality to that, if nothing else, because of the
Yeah,
mentality they had, shows you what kind of friends you really have.
absolutely.
Because that's all they lost from what you're saying right there
Yeah,
was
well, they
the
didn't even lose
friendship.
the friendship. Do you know what I mean? Because
Right.
they were, their friends were fantastic, and they were like, his next door neighbor used to be his boss,
Okay.
or used to be his supervisor, right? So, it was a really awesomely, brilliantly written script that just showed the truth behind urban homesteading, and I just loved
That's
it.
cool.
I absolutely
That's
loved
cool.
it. Yeah. Oh, Seeker says, I am back. Seems like someone paid Tony's ransom.
I seen that.
When we lived in a trailer, I hired the bed legs a bit. Oh, he lifted the legs
No.
beds a bit so we could store tin food in boxes under there. Totally get that.
Yep.
Because if you're living in that kind of space, that's what you got to do.
Yep.
You must watch Sue and Giles live the good life. It's hilariously funny. If I can find it on a streamed TV, I will. But if it's anything to do with the BBC, I won't be able to watch it because I don't have a TV license and I refuse to pay for one. I have more important things to get, like, I don't know, 150 million more packets of seeds.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. Okay, so then we went into the top 10 skills you need to start a self-sufficient garden. And that was about, again, it was about, it is on YouTube, thank you. That was very much about how you start in the garden, doing it very cheaply, finding different ways of doing it so that you can do it in the best way you possibly can. Also, Felicity Kendall, Barbara Good, was gorgeous. Yes, she was. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, but it was starting the self-sufficient garden in a way that isn't going to put you out of pocket, isn't going to oh God, I've been called out by chat. Oh no.
Yep.
No, I have a major seed problem with seeds. I don't see it as a problem. I see it as a challenge. So yeah, what were we saying? Oh yeah, so starting a self-sufficient garden on a shoestring, basically. Okay, we did that. Yes, we did. And then the next thing we looked at compost feeds and fertilizers that you could make at home,
Yep.
because this will save you hundreds of pounds or dollars every year. I mean hundreds, because it is. We have purchased this year so far, I want to say 8 bags of compost. Now, we haven't bought those at full price. We've been shopping around, and when we saw them for a couple of quid a bag, we grabbed them, right? And they were mostly broken bags or ones that were on the cheap because they're discontinued. So we've only spent 30 quid this year on compost. We still need to get another 5 to 6, possibly 10 bags of compost. Now, at the rate the compost is at the moment, it's about 12 quid a bag. It's anywhere between 7 and 12 quid a bag, which is very expensive for compost, I'll have you know. It's ridiculous. So that's another 120 quid that we have to find somewhere to go and buy dirt. But you can make your own dirt, and in that episode, you will find out lots and lots of ways to do that. Okay. Yep. And the feeds and everything. And if you made them yourself, you know what's in them. Okay. There's nothing in there that you can't read because you know how you've done it yourself.
Right.
I may or may not having a raised bed being delivered today that husband may or may not know about. Oh,
Well, it
suburban.
may or may not been nice to know you. No.
My darling, you're a woman after my own heart. You know, Tanny sees things arrive and he goes, where did that box come from? And I'll go, I don't know.
Oh, I ordered that 2
What have you
months
been doing
ago.
now? I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about, dear. It just turned up. Someone must have bought it on my wish list. And he's like, and it only occurs to him like 3 days later that my wish list isn't public. So, you know, but anywho. Okay, so next we went into companion planting, an introduction to companion planting, and we did a really good talk on that and discussed a lot to do with what plants can go with what and making the most for the space that you have, because obviously in an urban homestead you're going to be limited.
Right.
You know, you're going to be limited. Suburban Hillbilly says, I ain't scared. He'd been married 34 years next week. He knows me. Oh, happy anniversary, darling.
Yep.
I ordered it during the pandemic. Yeah, I'm not sure that one flies anymore.
That's funny.
Yeah. Okay, then we went to pesticides and weed control. Now, we did do quite a lot on the garden because it is quite a central point of urban homesteading. I am aware that many people don't do it because they can't do it, but that's okay. But we felt that it was important to put it in its own sections because it is quite a large topic. So, yeah, we went into pesticides and weed controls, the good, the bad, and the downright fugly. And we discussed all those and what the best way to do and all of those kinds of things. And then we went to the reality of urban homesteading, the ever-evolving process. Now, this was actually a subject that was suggested to me by someone who's not that far away, actually. Because, and it's an important one, actually. It really, really is, because people need to know about the realities. And there is a dark side, and it's not all lovely roses and flippy things and fancy tomatoes and all that. It is a lot of hard work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, hang on a second.
No matter the scale.
Hang on. I'm going to have to send my son a message. He doesn't seem to think that I'm live. So give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
And I will send off a message saying, I'm in a live. Will call you back. Good Lord. Read your messages, boy. Okay.
I think the important part about that is just to realize that, you know, everything's not hunky dory. There are some challenges out there. There are some limitations you have.
Yes.
Again, it goes back to the same thing we always say with everything. Do your own research.
Yes.
At least have a knowledge of what you're getting into. You may not have all the answers, but as time evolves and the process evolves, you'll become better at it. You'll become more knowledgeable at it, and it'll become easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's all about the research. It really, really is. And it's all about sitting down and thinking about what you're going to do.
Right.
You know, and planning. You know, research and planning.
I think that's the biggest thing.
Single time. It's all about research and planning. You know, it's never ending. It really is never unending. And
now, because I don't want us to put the fear out there to everybody that it's a constant all the time. It is a constant all the time, but once you become used to those and they become habits, you no longer think about it. It's just part of your routine. So don't get overwhelmed by what we're saying, but at the same token, don't walk into it thinking it's going to be a bubble bath either.
Absolutely.
Patty's laughing at me, but it was the best thing I could think of at the moment.
And Annie has another good point too.
Yep.
Don't let anyone talk you out of what you want to do.
Right.
Don't let them do it. If this is in your heart to do it, you do it.
And there are
You
tons
know?
of resources and people out that, at least with what we're attached to, that I can say that would be more than willing to help and offer what they have as far as their own experiences. So,
Yeah, exactly. You know, because even if you do it on your own and those people around you don't want to do the same thing, that's fine. Keep going. It's
yeah,
okay. But you will find your tribe.
yeah.
You
Sooner or
know,
later, you will. Yes.
you will find your tribe. Sooner or later, they will be there, you know, and whether they're online, on YouTube, or on social media or whatever, or they live closer to you because you find a group
Right.
or whatever, or you meet a person who can introduce you to a person who can introduce you to a person. You know how it goes, you
I
know?
do. Yeah.
So it's not all roses and fancy fruit and stuff like that, but it's not all bad either. And it's just, it is a journey. It's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon.
I think that's the
Okay.
best way to look at it,
Yeah.
is just that. You're not trying to get it done in 1 year and be
No.
self-sufficient and life goes on, because it's not going to happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you are older, okay, and you're thinking, oh well, I don't, you know, I don't have as many years in me to do this, that, and something else. You know what? You've got as many years as you got. I mean, you could be 22 and be not here in 6 months' time. You know,
Very
but
much
it's
a point.
making the most of the time you have and doing with it what you can, and your legacy is what you've done and you leave behind.
Yep.
You know, so if you're planting trees, you may not get anything from those trees until, like, you know, for 7 years. But, you know, the next generation will
Oh,
get it.
sorry.
All good. You know, so it's all about looking at legacy and looking at what you can do now and stuff as well. So it's all good. Okay, so then we go to last week, which was feathers, furs and scales. I should have said feathers, fur, and fishies. Um, and we had the lovely Lisa from Yogi Hollow Farm on, and we were talking about all things animal. Because when you're urban homesteading and when you're homesteading in general, there are things that you need to talk about. And as she said, she is rural, but she's still urban because she's on the edge of town. She still has neighbors. They only have 2 acres, but most of that 2 acres is taken up with pinewood forest. You know, so there's a lot to consider. And it's the same if you're in an urban environment. If you've got a courtyard that's the size of mine, you don't have room for a cow. You know, you don't have room for goats. And as much as
Yep.
some people in urban environments or who live in apartments think it's very cute to have a baby goat as a pet and class it as a companion animal, it's not good animal welfare, you
Right.
know, and that is a pet. And the reason being they're herd animals at the end of the day, and you can never replace the herd. So if you only have one, or you only have room for one, or your licenses and restrictions in your area only allow you to have one of something, then it's cruel. You know, at the
Yep.
end of the day, it's cruel, you know, because they get lonely and then they get depressed, and they do get depressed. So yeah, we looked at what was possible, what's not possible, and what was downright dumb. But we also looked a bit at the darker side of it as well, which is the dispatching and processing, or having to make really hard decisions. Because if you can't make those decisions, then you shouldn't be having the animals,
Correct.
you know. And the other part of it is that it should never, ever, ever be a good day when you're dispatching and processing animals. You know, it's not something you should be enjoying. It's got to hurt. It does have to hurt. Otherwise, don't have animals. Please, for the love of everything, don't have animals if you enjoy that part. Because it's just no. Or go and work in an abattoir. Go and do that. Yep. But yeah, it's not a fun day, and it's not supposed to be.
No.
And it's not something that you can, if you got to the stage where you're immune to it. Immune's not a good word, is it? Or it doesn't.
But it is. It is. It is.
It is. Yeah, if it doesn't affect you, then that's an issue. And you need to stop. So yeah. But anywho. But there's a lot of good stuff that comes from it as well. And you appreciate what you've done with that animal more. And you appreciate the life of that animal more. So you look after your animals better. And that's the point.
Don't enjoy the process, but appreciate the benefit.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So there we go. That's been our series.
Hi.
So at the end of the day, this series has now run its course, which is great. That's not a problem. And what is going to happen, there is going to be a written resource. I'm a little behind with it, not hugely behind with it, but it will be out on the 10th of May. Now it's going to be available on Etsy, and it's going to be available to all the Patreons. It should have been going out episode by episode each week. Patreons, it hasn't. The reason being that I didn't want Patreons to have a second-class copy of it. And I've added pictures to what I've done. So I want them to have the same as they would get if they were getting it off Etsy. Now, when I do put it on Etsy, it will be for a $5. And the reason being that money will be going towards buying pots and seeds and compost and stuff like that for more seedlings so that I can give more to the group that gives out the veg seedlings and fruit seedlings, etc., to people at the food banks, because I want to continue doing that. I want to be able to do more of that. So that's why the money from that goes. And there's the money where Patreon goes at this point as well. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but they will be available on the 10th of May.
Okay. I think Suburban Hillbilly sums it up right there.
This is why I'm not a homesteader. I grew up on a farm.
Nope. Down below that.
It's been a great and very informative series. Oh, thank you so much, darling. Thank you, Blue, and all guests. Yeah.
That's important.
Thank you so much, darling. I really do appreciate that you've enjoyed it. I'm going to be taking a couple of weeks off from these lives because I've got a massive series coming up. And I'm deciding whether that series is going to be incorporated into these lives on a Friday, or if we're going to find another subject that fits into the whole budgeting, urban homesteading kind of vibe into series 3. So I'm still deciding on how to do that and what to do with that. And we're going to go from there. Okay. But I will be taking probably the whole of May off as far as the Friday lives go. Okay.
Oh, going on vacation, are we?
Yes, I'm going on vacation. I'm giving myself an extra day to do some work. So it's all, better for you guys, to be fair. I remember, this is brilliant. Suburban Hillbilly says, I remember when the goats crawled under the fence and at my mum's strawberry patch. The whole herd was at the stockyard before I got home.
Yep.
I bet it was.
Don't mess with mom's strawberries.
No. Yeah. Yeah, no, I can understand that. But see, you can homestead without animals as well.
Yes,
And if you're
I
doing
do.
the cooking and you're doing all of the things and you're trying to keep things going the best way you can, and minimizing and being as self-sufficient as possible, that's still homesteading.
That's right.
Just because you don't have animals, there's a lot of vegetarians and vegans out there that actually homestead.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
they're never going to have animals except as pets or as rescues. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So Alicia over at Country Mama's Musings,
Oh yeah.
all her animals except for her birds. And her birds are actually, they eat the eggs, but none of the animals get eaten. They're all
Right.
rescued. They all live their best life. She and her family are all vegetarian.
Yep.
They have a
I forgot
farm.
about that. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a gardener, canner, and quilter. That's all. That makes you a homesteader, my darling. That makes you an urban homesteader. You are awesome. And we love you.
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Yes. So anyway, guys, we're going to go. We've gone over our hour. I know.
The
It's
penalty
terrible.
points start racking up now.
I know. But I have had so much fun doing this series. I hope
It
you
was a
have
good
too.
series.
And if you guys ever have any questions, please do let me know in the comments below. Excuse me. And I just want to thank you for all your support during this series. And we will let you know what's happening really, really soon. Keep an eye on the community tab because I will let you know through there if I don't let you know any other way. And I have just realized that I haven't done my April catch-up brew with Blue at all
Again,
this month.
here come the penalty points.
I know. I just lost brownie points completely, didn't I? But we
Yep.
will have one in May, and that will be on Tuesday. So we'll do that. Okay.
All right.
So I will talk to you guys later on. Have a really, really awesome rest of your day. Thank you to all the guests that have been a part of this series. Mr. Tony over here, Ginger over at Nut for Nothing Homestead, Lisa at Yogi Hollow Farm. And look out for, I will let you know when the release of the resources for this, the written, is done. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to you because this has been informative and I agree with what Suburban Hillbilly said. It gave people an outlet to see if they're interested, what it takes and what they need to do. So thank you to you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I'm going to
Bye.
go because I'm going to get all shovey. Okay. I'll see you guys later. Have a really, really awesome one. Bye.
Bye.